Is it ready?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. 2 years ago, a friend mentioned that Mary Washington Alumni Group to Tanzania with a biologist and a zoologist. And she wondered if I would want to go with her. And I was thrilled. I was so excited because it was a dream come true. But then the pandemic hit, and I was wondering if it would ever really happen. But in June of this year, I joined 11 other people for a marvelous adventure. The plant and animal life in the savannah in Tanzania is preserved in a number of parks and nature reserves. And here, here are some of the ones. Now, I'm just wondering, is this sign right of everything? I'm going to move it down. Is that okay?
We cannot see a sign.
Oh, good. I can. It's right in the middle of my whole presentation. So there. Okay. So plants are definitely essential to life in Tanzania. And these are some of the parks where we went. Arusha National Park, Tarangire National Park, Great Rift Valley, Escarpment, Gibbs Farm, Lake Manyara National Park, Ngorongoro Crater, and the Serengeti National Park. We also went some other, but these were the main ones where we went. I was intending to concentrate on the amazing animals, but on the third day, I was struck by the magnificent variety and beauty of the plant life. And I thought that you and the master gardeners in Virginia might like it. It's not working there. Okay. As a point of reference, here is Tanzania. It's an African country.
You are not
it
sharing
borders on the
screen yet. You are not sharing screen that I can see.
Oh,
It says you are screen sharing.
yes.
I see
You
it.
don't see it?
I see it. I
Nancy.
see the map.
Yeah, I can see it.
See the map.
Okay, sorry. Don't know what I'm doing. Keep going.
Okay. So it is a big country which borders on the Indian Ocean and lies just south of the equator. And at one time, the driver said that we were 4 degrees from the equator. Much of the country is covered by a plateau, and this plateau has a subtropical or a tropical climate, not too hot because of the altitude. And the temperatures remain stable all year round with daytime highs of 82 degrees and lows of 68 degrees Fahrenheit.
Love it.
The thin coastal part of the country is hot and humid throughout the year, especially from November to April. Is it okay now or?
Yes, I had to switch something on my PC.
Okay. It's not switching slides. That's what I'm having trouble with, actually. Where it says, okay. Okay, here's where we landed in Arusha Airport. And we traveled in a safari vehicle where the whole top of the safari vehicle was pushed up and you could see all the way around with no windows or anything. It was really amazing. So we traveled for 12 days and stayed in 4 different establishments. And I got correct. But anyway, we did travel during the coolest and driest part of the year. And the yearly rainfall is about 23 inches. We traveled through tropical rainforests, mountains, woodlands, grasslands, and steppes, which are semi-arid short grasses. On the first of our nights, we stayed here at Lake Diluti Lodge. We spent 2 nights there, and it's a tropical rainforest with beautiful plants. And it was just misting in the morning when I went out, and it just made the leaves shine, and it was just so beautiful to see all these flowers that I had never seen before. The flora was just amazing. I was surprised at the different kind of bananas, especially the small red ones that they had. The banana and plantain are native to Southeast Asia, not to Africa. They've been cultivated for thousands of years, but they were believed to have been introduced to Africa in prehistoric times. And then they came to the New World in Ecuador by Southeast Asians in 200 BCE. The Ravenala madagascarensis is native to Madagascar. It's also called the traveler's tree, and it's an evergreen tree, usually growing up to 66 feet tall. The plant produces large banana-like leaves that can each be 8 to 13 feet long and 2.5 to 5 feet wide, on top of a stout petiole that is about 10 to 20 long. It's held in a fan-shaped formation of 20 leaves. This plant produces an edible seed that sometimes is gathered in the wild for local use. It gains its common name from the fact that a great deal of rainwater and liquid plant secretions collect in the leaf bases and leaf bracts of the plant. And these have been used as refreshments for travelers for many years. As we were driving with our safari vehicle, I noticed these tall century plants that lined the road the first day. They looked so natural. They looked to be native plants. However, actually Western US and Mexico. They're the agave americana. Now here is a forest habitat, and you'd almost think that it was a place here, except for the animals that are gathered around the water. Farm was an amazing place. We enjoyed a wonderful meal and found out that it was established in the 70s. There was been time to stroll around and take pictures of their farm and guest houses that use environmentally respectful practices through projects such as solar energy, community uplift, and farming. Gibbs Farm serves delicious homegrown delicacies, and it has 30 acres of coffee, 10 acres of vegetables and fruit, 5 acres of flowers and herbs, and a working dairy and pig farm. And it's based all on sustainable farming methods. And everything is grown organically using only natural fertilizer and compost from the farm. And this was the view as you come out of the ladies' restroom. This is what you see, all of these beautiful plants. And this is all around the farm. Just gorgeous. Now this is Arabica coffee, and Gibbs Farm grows it. It's also called shade or shadow coffee. In Tanzania, Arabica coffee grows mostly in the northern part of the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Meru under the shade of banana plant or tall leaf trees. The high altitudes and minerals present in the volcanic soil create a microclimate that's very favorable to the growth of this coffee. Now, while this coffee is more expensive to grow, there are many benefits, and I'll just name a few. Because of the shade of the coffee plants, it delays the ripening of the cherry or bean and makes uniform maturation, which provides for a greater development of the sugars, which adds to the flavor and the aroma of the coffee. I don't know if you all have heard of this kind of coffee. Do you all I don't know how I can see people, but I'd love to know how many people, if you could raise your hand, how many people have heard of Arabica coffee or the shade
Oh, I've
coffee?
heard of it.
Oh,
heard
good,
of it.
good.
Sure.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, because it is grown within other plants, it protects the natural ecosystem, and it helps with the pollination of both the coffee and the other plants that are with it. And it mimics the way that coffee grows in nature. It has natural predators which help control the coffee pests. And it also helps preserve the natural biodiversity of the area, because migratory and tropical birds, reptiles, and other animals use the coffee as their home. And this has an impact on the whole overall environment of the area. It protects the local water supplies because the roots trap the runoff water and help prevent erosion. And because of the shade, it needs less irrigation to grow the coffee. It also helps with the atmospheric balance, and it has to be picked by hand. So it helps the local economy as well. It's more expensive because of that, but it has to be treated more gently than regular coffee, than the sun-grown coffee. Here are some more pictures of Gibbs Farm. It was just an amazing place. And then I came upon this plant. I don't know how many of you all have seen this plant. It was actually in the window of my grandmother's house many, many, many years ago. Yes, yeah, this is the Sansevieria trifascacia. Excuse my pronunciation. I tried to learn the pronunciations, but I didn't get there in all of the cases.
I think it's
Um,
trifasciata.
Thank you. Thank you.
Trifasciata. Yeah.
Trifasciata. Very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's also called St. George's sword, or mother-in-law's tongue, or the snake plant. And it picked up its name because of the sharpness of the evergreen sword-like leaves that grow in an upward fashion. It is a flowering type. However, when it's grown indoors, it's fairly hard to encourage those flowers, although it's not impossible. Here are some more plants from Gibbs Farm. And I started noticing, you notice those leaves on the right. And is this a begonia? I'm not sure. The leaves don't quite look like it, but the flowers sure did. They usually come from China or Japan. How about, do you recognize these? I think I've seen them in potted plants.
Mhm.
And could this be a water lily, which is native to North America?
Hmm.
There were also many ferns, and I found out there are over 140 ferns in the area of Mount Kilimanjaro. How about these plants? Sunflower, native to North America. Hibiscus cannabinus grows wild in Kenya and Tanzania. And how about this? Is this one familiar? Tradescantia zebrina. I was very surprised because I actually have one right here on my deck. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is growing outside in Tanzania, really from South America or Mexico. Here's some more plants. The flowers were just incredible. The colors, it was just amazing to see them all. And then this is an anthurium. The anthurium is a popular adaptable tropical plant native to the Philippines and India. And I've seen it in flower arrangements here in America.
Mhm.
Some more plants at Gibbs Farm.
Wow.
This one is pretty, and I have seen it before, but I couldn't find out the name. It was very beautiful.
Fuchsia.
What is it?
That's a Fuchsia.
Fuchsia?
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, now how about this one? The Solanum arcanum, or the Sodom apple.
Wow.
It's considered a noxious invasive weed of the nightshade family, but it has many medicinal uses, from sore throat, angina, stomachache, colic, headache, painful menstruation, liver pain, and many, many more. Its native range is Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and from Iran to India. And yet, yesterday, I took a picture in Fauquier County, the same plant. See the tomato? The same plant. So it's native to Africa, and yet we have it here in Fauquier County and lots of other places. So in the summer, I read a story, a book, 1493 by Charles C. Mann and Robinson Dean. It's a book about the Columbian Exchange. That helped make sense of the plants that were growing there that I've also seen in America. The African products that were introduced to the Americas included items originally from Asia were brought to the West by European traders and by slaves. These items include onions, citrus fruits, bananas, coffee beans, olives, grapes, rice, and sugarcane. Can you imagine life without these? The American plants that were taken from Africa to Africa include staples such as corn, maize, potatoes, cassava, sweet potatoes, together with secondary food crops such as peanuts, pumpkins, squashes, pineapples, and chili peppers. And now for some interesting plants from Tanzania. This is the Ficus aurea, the strangler fig.
Wow.
It's vital to life in East Africa. Animals and insects turn to it for food, and tribes also rely on it for their well-being. The strangler competes for the forest resources by beginning its life as an epiphyte high in the canopy. And essentially, it grows on top of other plants, and usually epiphytes do not harm their hosts. Instead, they get their nutrients from air, water, and sunlight. But regarding the strangler, it sprouts from small seeds that get into the canopy for the feast of monkeys or birds or bats that have enjoyed their sweet fruit. At this stage, it grows upwards and develops leaves and absorbs sunlight. But unlike the regular epiphyte, the strangler fig also grows downward and wraps itself around the host tree and drives its roots into the ground. So the strangler is in fact a hemiepiphyte. It helps itself to the sunlight and other nutrients of the host tree needs, and it strangles the tree in the process. But ultimately, the host tree dies, leaving the strangler with a hollow trunk, and eventually it crumples to the ground. Then we have the Adansonia digitata, or the baobab tree, which is a huge tree that appears to be upside down with its roots waving in the air. The baobab has been nicknamed the tree of life because for millennia, tribes and animals, birds use their branches as shade and fruit for the dyes and vitamin-rich supplements. There are 2 native species of baobabs to Africa, mainland Africa, and their size is 40 to 70 feet tall. Their trunk is 35 to 60 feet in diameter. That's a big tree. The average age of a baobab tree, it lives for 1,000 to 2,000 years. Now, baobabs hoard water in those trunks there. They hoard water in there for the dry months and the droughts. The baobab fruit is considered a superfood. It's the size of a coconut, and it has as much vitamin C as 10 times the vitamin C of an orange and 10 times the fiber of an apple. Here's an Euphorbia ingens, which is a candelabra plant. It's native to the African savanna. It has yellow flowers, and it is the latex from the tree is quite dangerous and can cause burns on the skin and blindness if it gets near the eyes. It's not a true cactus. And you can tell because of the sticky, milky white fluid with latex in it. Do not have. The National Botanical Garden in DC has a great exhibit of euphorbias. Our knowledgeable guide told us that cacti are native to the New World, America, whereas euphorbias are native to the Old World, Africa. There were many, many wildflowers that were very subtle color there, not big and showy, but subtle splashes. But here, this one, and I'm sorry, this the name is off the slide. It's an Eponia Hildebrandt, and it's kind of like our morning glory, and it grows all around and just laces all of the landscapes that we traversed. Here's the Leonotis, or the lion's tail, or lion's ear. Now, when we were there, we didn't see that. This is what we saw. It's closer to the seed part when we went. And it is used, it's from the mint family, and there are 9 different species. Pollinators love the nectar, and it is deer resistant, in case anybody's interested. I know everybody usually loves that one, but the Serengeti National Park, and we were there for 4 days, and it was amazing. The Thai word for Serengeti means the endless plains, and it's the size of New England. And it was formed by a group of ancient volcanoes that erupted, and all the ash settled in the shadow and caused a huge grassland, one of the last in the world. This is a Salvadora persica, which is the toothbrush bush. And it is very amazing. It's a low shrub, sometimes a tree, that grows in the dry bushland and wooded grasslands. It's an evergreen with the characteristic long arching shoots. It has many medicinal purposes, and it's also used as fodder, and the leaves just sat. It's used in traditional medicine, such as coughs, asthma, rheumatism, and other diseases. And the flowers can be used as a mild laxative. But the thing that makes it famous are these chewing sticks that actually contain antibiotics, toothaches. It's also found to have active compounds which reduce decay, gum disease, and plaque. And that's how to brush our teeth properly. I noticed large areas were burned, and our guide told us that the rangers have a plan to do control burns once a year. Most of them are done at the end of the green season, which is in June, which is when we went, so that the grass is not terribly dry, and so that it won't become out of control. These stimulate growth of the new healthy grass during the dry season, and also create natural fire breaks during the dry season. Because the big fires, if they get out of control, can do a lot of damage. It also reduces the tsetse fly, eliminates noxious weeds that may have begun to grow. Now, there's so many plants in Serengeti. And those plants serve as hiding places for some. They serve as food for others. And for this young lady, it's a stylish addition. It was so funny to see that with the beautiful flowers in her hair. And here, this red plant, I think maybe an amaranthus, but I'm not positive. I couldn't find it exactly. Now here's the acacia tortilius, or the umbrella thorn, which is one of the most widely distributed acacias on the planet. There are actually 160 species of acacia tree, and they are in the pea family, which I thought was very interesting. Your typical acacia will grow around 40 feet, with tall as 60 feet and about 3 feet in diameter. Acacias are used for many things. They use the tannins. They use the tannins in the acacia bark for dyeing, use it for dyes, and their timber is harvested for fence posts and firewood too. The animals use it for shelter and food. Now here's a small acacia that was very, very interesting. It's called the whistling thorn acacia, and you can see the weaver birds have woven their nests in there. But in these little galls, these little black galls, there are ants that live, little black biting ants, and they discourage plants from, they animals from browsing on these acacias. And when the ants die, the wind blows through those little galls and makes a whistling sound, and that's where their name comes from. Unfortunately, the giraffes don't mind the ants or the thorns, and they munch away on the acacias. Now, the acacia tree has 3 means of self-defense. It has the long, slender thorns that are very sharp. It also has hooked thorns and other kinds, but it uses also the ants with balls, and you can see the little hole where they go in. And it also has a chemical defense that is very interesting. When animals browse on the acacia will release this poison increases in the tree, and it makes it a chemical called ethylene is released, which is a chemical defense system that travels up to 45 meters, and it warns other nearby trees, acacia trees, of the oncoming feeders. And they release tannins to make their leaves taste bad. And so the animals go on to another area. So that way they won't deforest all of the acacias in one area. And here's an acacia tree with interest. Notice up in here, we saw some with lions and some with leopards hanging out and looking out for their next meal. This is a Kiglia tree, or a Kiglia africana tree. It's also called a sausage tree, which you'll see why. It's very strange, and its fruit is up to 2 feet long and weighs up to 15 pounds, and it oddly resembles a bratwurst.
Mhm.
There's only 1 species throughout Africa, and it's in the tropical part of Africa, and it can grow up to 66 feet. It can be evergreen in wet areas, but deciduous in dry areas. And tribes use the fruit to fight infections, skin conditions, burns, etc. And the animals in the bush enjoy the fruit, such as baboons, bush pigs, elephants, giraffes, hippos, but eaten fresh, it's poisonous to humans. And their fascinating flowering, if you see, is a hanging clusters of maroon colored orchid looking flowers called panicles. We didn't get to see the flower on the trees. We just saw the fruit. These landforms were scattered throughout the Serengeti. Now, the Serengeti is huge flat land, flat grassland, but then you have these copies that are sprinkled throughout the Serengeti. And these bouldered hills in such a flat landscape that seems to go on forever, but they are very important to wildlife to be refuges. They shelter leopards, lion prides, and hosts of other animals and reptiles. They began as bubbles in molten rock billions of years ago that forced themselves up into the layers. And there were low hills that formed, and these are essentially the mountaintops, but they were all worn away. And then there were huge ancient volcanoes that blasted ash all over the Serengeti, further flattening the area between the copies. And the copies, because they're made out of hard crystalline rock, are still there, and they are really important to all the wildlife. Now, Tanzania has a wealth of familiar plants shared through the Columbian Exchange, and it also has exotic plants found mainly in Tanzania and other parts of Africa. Most of our travelers with me were mainly interested in mainly in the animals, in the amazing animals, but I was also intrigued with plants and the interconnection between the plants and animals and humans. Now that I've told you about many of the plants, forgive me if I couldn't resist sharing a few of the animals that we encountered. And I'll begin with their interconnection, which is the food web. Now, the Serengeti has long been studied as a fully functioning natural ecosystem for over 50 years. Although the food web is dominated by vertebrates, herbivores, and carnivores, the health and abundance of the plant life has a huge impact of the health and birth rates of all the animals. The consumption of plants by herbivores is dramatic and outstanding from an ecological perspective. Herbivores of different sizes trade off quality versus quantity of food, with the smaller species increasingly specialized to feed on the most nutritious parts of the few selected plant species. Wildebeests and zebras migrate to the short grass plains during the spring rains, when these grasses grow rapidly and are most nutritious. And that's what they were doing while we were there. It was during the big migration. The gazelles also move on to the short grass plains and remain there after the larger species migrate back to the longer grasses and the woodlands. The woodland species such as impala, dik-dik are never seen in the short grass area, while buffalo, giraffe move across the edges between woodland and longer grass plains. The elephants eat over 300 pounds of food in a single day, and the Thompson gazelles eat 90% of their diet is grasses, and they also eat seeds and browse on shrubs. They also like to be where the bigger animals are that trample the large grass, the tall grass, and so they can eat their favorite food. Warthogs appear ferocious, but they're basically grazers. They just eat the plants and grasses, and they use their snouts to dig up roots and bulbs. Black rhinos feed on trees and bushes, whereas white rhinos feed on grasses. And the colobus monkeys live in the trees where they eat leaves and fruit. Giraffes mainly eat leaves and buds on trees and shrubs, including the acacia trees, which many animals avoid because of the thorns and chemical defense and the biting ant. They also eat herbs, climbers, vines, and prefer flower and fruit when in season. Now, the birds were particularly beautiful. These are bee eaters, and they're insectivorous, and they primarily eat bees, but also other flying insects. And my favorite was the lilac-breasted roller. It's eats large insects, small reptiles, rodents, and even frogs. But watching this bird in flight is simply amazing.
Mm.
Susan, there's a question in the chat.
Okay. Let me get to the end of the birds and then we'll
Oh.
stop. Okay.
Okay.
The superb starling eats insects, berries, fruits, and seeds. The flamingos are omnivorous. A typical flamingo diet consists of blue-green algae, brine shrimp, and small insects, larvae, and some mollusks. Then we have the red and yellow barbet, so beautiful in the trees, eats insects, lizards, birds' eggs, fruits, berries. There was a huge field full of these great gray-crowned cranes foraging for grass seeds, small toads, insects, and other invertebrates. Ostriches eat roots, leaves, and seeds, but they'll eat anything that's available, including insects, snakes, lizards, and rodents. Then we have secretary birds, which eat insects, scorpions, millipedes, and crabs. And we can answer the question. What's the question? I'll just let these scroll through. Go ahead. What's the question? Okay. The yellow-billed stork eats small freshwater fish. And then
I was
the
muted.
vultures swoop in to eat the carrion that was scavenged from the predators. And the last one is the egrets feed on fish, crustacean, frogs, salamanders, snakes, and other aquatic animals. So now what's the question?
Sharon wanted to know if the elephants, shoot, where did my chat go? If the elephants raided the farms. Or did you know?
Actually, our guide did mention something about that. That what they do is they have bees around their farms, and the elephants hate bees because if the bees get up their trunks, it's really horrible. So they have beehives around their farms so that the elephants won't trample on and eat all of their gardens. That's a very good question.
That's a
Any other
smart thing to
questions?
do. No, that's the
What?
only one we have. I said that's a smart thing to do, but that's the only question we have at this point. in time.
Yeah. Yeah, they had some beehives that they put up in the trees. They had boxes that they had up in the trees too. It was really amazing to see all the different ways they did their farming. Okay. So now we've got omnivores. And the omnivores eat almost everything. They eat the leaves, the fruits. They also eat other animals. I wouldn't think of baboons as eating other animals, but they eat eggs and small animals as well. This is a Manyara monkey. It eats fruits and figs and insects and leaves, mainly seeds and flower and fungi. We saw a group of these vervet monkeys, and I wanted to figure out how to put in a video of them. They were so amazing to watch. They kept jumping up and grabbing each other's tails and running around. It was just like a whole schoolyard full of children. And these are rock hyraxes. And they like to eat in a circle with their families, and they're all facing out in case of predators. And here we've got the mongooses that feed on anything available, including plants, fruits, insects, reptiles, small mammals, and snakes. The jackals, but the blackback jackal, next you'll see a blackback jackal. They usually eat animals as well as plants and fruit. And then we have our carnivores. carnivores to see the lions in their family groups. It was just amazing. Lions eat many medium-sized, large-hoofed herbivores like wildebeest and zebras and antelopes. But they have to depend on the herbivores. But look at that. I saw that. It looks so unreal to see them, you know, the cubs just lolling around the adults. It was just really amazing to see. Then the spotted hyenas, those are scavengers, but they also are skilled hunters, very skilled hunters. And they take down wildebeest and antelopes. They also kill and eat birds, lizards, snakes, and insects. And the leopard's diet fluctuates. It eats all kinds of animals, carrots, birds, even rodents, hares, and warthogs. And cheetahs eat small antelopes, as well as the young of larger animals, such as warthogs, kudu, hartebeests, and others. They eat game birds and rabbits. Now, although the omnivores and carnivores eat other animals, especially herbivores, without the large availability of plants, all the animals would starve and eventually perish. So I'm very grateful to the people of Tanzania who have built much of their economy on ecotourism, which provides incentive and money that needed to keep the habitats healthy for all their plants and animals. Are so impressive. And are there any questions? Any
That was very well done, Susan.
What about, Sharon was asking, which camera and lenses did you use?
Which camera lenses?
Yeah.
When I went to Africa, I had a lens goes from 76 meters, no, it goes from 18 meters to 400 meters, which
Wow.
really helped me to be able to capture the animals at a distance, like especially the birds. Most of the people on the trip didn't get pictures of birds because they were so far away, but I got quite a number of pictures of birds. So I was very glad to have that long lens.
I bet. Just
I
out of
now have-
curiosity, Susan, did you eat any unusual meat or plants that you liked or disliked?
I don't remember right now. I didn't eat a lot of different foods. I just normally don't. And I know I don't remember.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay.
I'm not a very adventurous eater.
Okay, well, that's fine.
They had some interesting plants and things, the fresh plants that were quite interesting.
Well, it looked like a lot of pretty.
And I
plants
wish I'd
itself.
tried the toothbrush tree, but I didn't. What?
Do they
I'm
use
sorry.
that instead of a toothbrush? Do they chew on it, or how's that?
They chew on it. Yeah, they chew on it. Now
Chew.
I don't imagine that they use it only use it because there are only so many toothbrush tree bushes around. So I don't think they use it solely, but that's what they used to use. And that's what helped their teeth, help preserve their teeth.
Yeah. Well, good. I don't see any other questions. Anybody else have a comment other than that was a very good presentation? We enjoyed it. I've never been to Tanzania, and that looks like a very interesting place to go for sure.
It was wonderful. There were so many different things to see. And in the Swahili, they would say, Asante sana and kwaheri, which means thank you and goodbye.
That must have been photographer's heaven right there, though, especially this last picture here. That looks really beautiful. Thanks a lot, Susan. We really appreciate
Fantastic.
it. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
What did you eat? Did they cater to the
Oh,
diet needs of people?
They did. I mean, they had all kinds of foods there, and they had oftentimes when we went out on safari, they would bring a picnic breakfast or a picnic lunch, and they spread out huge feast of all kinds of things. It was just amazing. The interesting thing was the eggs there in mooses, the egg yolk were white. They weren't yellow at all. And I'm not quite sure why. They didn't know why. But they were white instead of yellow.
That's
And they
amazing.
were regular chicken eggs, but
Chicken
they
eggs.
were, yeah.
Must be the
But they were
diet.
white. And then- so when you had scrambled eggs, it was very white. It looked like it was without egg yolks, but it really did have the egg yolks in it.
Were they, what kind of eggs were they?
They were chicken eggs.
They were
But
chicken.
for some reason, they didn't have the yellow pigment in them.
That's
There were a few areas where they did have more yellow in them, but most of them, I actually cut the egg, a hard-boiled egg. And it was all the way through.
Hmm,
It was very
Yeah.
interesting. Very
Never heard of that one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
something new, isn't there?
Yeah, I took pictures for my friends' children who have chickens. I just have to show them to them.
The white yolk chicken.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Right.
Well, that was
Okay.
that was really interesting, Susan.
That
Thank you
was
so much.
interesting. It was a wonderful trip.
Thank you,
Good.
Susan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Appreciate it.
much.
Bye.
Good night.
Hope to see you in mid-November.
Yes, I'm planning to be there.
Okay, good.
Good.
Okay, bye-bye.
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 Bye.